Hi everyone, and welcome to our Wednesday webinar series, Lunch with the Birds. My name is Amanda Duran. I'm the Program Coordinator for the Ohio Bird Conservation Initiative, and we are the organization that is presenting this webinar series. Although we won't be having a webinar next month, I would like to invite all of you to come visit our booth at the Ohio Wildlife Diversity Conference, which will be on March 12th in Columbus, Ohio. And if you're interested in attending, I have a link here on how you can still register for that conference. I also want to take a moment to invite you to take a look at some of our past webinars, which are archived on our website at obcinet.org. We have recordings of past webinars, including a tutorial on how to use eBird, a presentation on Ohio's woodpeckers. We have a presentation on the owls of Ohio, as well as a summary of selecting birding optics. So definitely invite you to check out some of our past webinars. But with that, I would like to introduce today's speaker, Paula Ziebarth. Paula is a resident of Powell in central Ohio, as well as South Bass Island in Lake Erie. She began developing and monitoring bluebird trails in 2002 and has since become the Delaware County Area Contact for Ohio Bluebird Society, the Cornell Nestwatch Chapter Coordinator, and the Monitor Coordinator for Preservation Parks of Delaware County, Stratford Ecological Center, Liberty Township, and Sheaf East Point Nature Preserve on South Bass Island. She also monitors boxes for the City of Powell, Recreation Unlimited Safari Golf Course, and Powell YMCA. Paula is very involved also with purple martin conservation work in central Ohio and South Bass Island, which includes monitoring, advising, and data collection. You may know Paula as Madam WingNut from her column in the Ohio Bluebird Society Journal, and she has also contributed articles for the North American Bluebird Society. So with that, I'll turn it over to Paula for her presentation.
Thank you all for joining me today, and thank you for that nice introduction, Amanda. Last year, I monitored 154 purple martin nest compartments at 6 different sites, pledging 439 purple martins. I hope this presentation will give you some good tips for attracting and managing purple martin colonies. Working with these birds and other cavity nesting species is a real passion of mine and can become a little addictive. So let's begin our journey by learning some history, myths, and facts about America's largest swallow. William Leon Dawson lived from 1873 to 1928, and he was a noted American ornithologist. I have a copy of his Birds of Ohio, published in 1903. In it, he wrote, "From time immemorial, the garrulous martin has enjoyed the hospitality of man. Before the advent of the whites, the Indian is said to have prepared for the yearly return of the martin by trimming the boughs from some saplings hard by the wigwam, and leaving the prongs a foot or two in length, on each of which he hung a gourd or calabash properly hollowed out for the bird's accommodation." So why did Native Americans house them? Some theories include they enjoyed the sound and flight of these birds as we do today. Martins may have acted as scarecrows in their gardens, defending their colony to the best of their ability from predatory mammals, crows, and hawks. They would sound alarm calls, which might spur the people to action. We know Native Americans grew maize, and raccoons love that stuff. I actually enjoy putting tree swallow houses in my garden. They seem to chase away small little mammals like chipmunks and rabbits, which like to eat the tender shoots of my plants when they're coming up. So martins may have chased away vultures from the curing animal hides. There also are accounts of Native Americans using dried, dead, pulverized purple martin bodies as a sort of insecticide when curing hides. So these martins would have developed a behavioral tradition shift to nest near man, viewing them as a safe haven and protection from many of the dangers found in the wild. Filling in a little more recent history, I've included this slide of a James Audubon print. In 1831, he wrote, "Almost every country tavern has a martin box on the upper part of its signboard, and I have observed that the handsomer the box, the better does the inn generally prove to be." In 1900, William Dawson wrote that purple martins did not use man-supplied housing much in Ohio. At that time, Ohio was still heavily wooded, and many woodpecker holes were available for these secondary cavity nesting birds. Also at that time, house sparrows, an introduced non-native bird, were already rampant in the state, and he believes they were responsible for purple martins being chased away from man-supplied housing. He reports that the prairie states were having better success housing purple martins. An interesting excerpt from his book mentions a large roost near where most of my colonies are on South Bass Island. In the summer of 1901, we saw upwards of 1,000 of them roosting in the hackberry trees of North Harbor Island, and had reason to believe that the company represented not only the entire population of the Lake Erie Islands, but a considerable number of the Canadian and Ohio mainland as well. North Harbor Island is just north of East Sister and Lake Erie. Both are small islands in Ontario, Canada. After his book was published, another non-native aggressive competitor, the European starling, came on the scene. Today, east of the Rockies, martins nest almost exclusively in man-supplied housing. So here's some martin myths. This first myth may have been promulgated by manufacturers of purple martin equipment. For the most part, martins are roosting before most mosquitoes come out at dusk. Studies have shown that mosquitoes comprise a very small part of their diet. Even if out at dusk, they will be gleaning larger and more significant insects from higher altitudes. If you want to promote mosquito control through wildlife conservation efforts, provide housing for bats. Many people think they have martins when they really don't. Several other birds can be mistaken for purple martins. Tree swallows are also a native swallow, but smaller than martins and with a solid white breast. Their black iridescent backs often look purplish or bluish in hue. People unfamiliar with purple martins often mistake them for the real thing, especially if they don't have martins on site to compare size. European starlings are a non-native competitor, purplish green, iridescent, with yellow beaks during nesting season. Adult martins actually return first. They are not scouting for nest sites, but rather returning to housing where they successfully nested the previous year. Often adults will stop and check out housing and rest on their way further south to their nesting site, but second-year birds are the ones that you hope to attract when starting a new colony. Second-year birds are those that were hatched and fledged last year, and they follow the adults about 2 weeks later. Often seen in purple martin rigs, both house sparrows and European starlings will kill adults, eggs, young, and quickly take over all the housing if you let them. European starlings and house sparrows are introduced invasive species and are not natural. Man-made housing is not natural. If you put up a house for them, you are assuming responsibility for their well-being. Please don't set them up to be killed. Three of the birds seen here might try to use your purple martin housing. Barn swallows are often mistaken for purple martins also, but only builds its mud nests in barns or on people's houses. The European starling on the top left is a female with a beak in transition to the yellow color it has during breeding season. You can tell this is a female because of the pinkish tinge at the base of her bill. If you see a blackbird with a yellow bill on your purple martin housing, it isn't a martin. That would be a European starling with its breeding beak, which is full yellow then. So here you see also in these photos tree swallows, barn swallows, and finally a purple martin on the bottom right. Some martin facts. They're 7.5 to 7.9 inches long, and martins are smaller than a robin but larger than a tree swallow. They have a wingspan of about 15 to 16 inches, and they weigh 1.6 to 2.1 ounces. The oldest known martin was 13 years, 9 months old. Now, the reason for their dependence on humans is likely twofold. Natural cavities have been taken over by two non-native aggressive bird species and human deforestation of land for agricultural use. This is a picture of the purple martin rig in my backyard on South Bass Island. Martins are very prevalent here due to excellent habitats near Lake Erie and an abundant food supply. Martins usually line their nests with green leaves, and they have one brood per year in Ohio. They lay one egg per day and begin incubation after the last egg is laid. I have had nests with 8 eggs, but it is very rare. And when they have all hatched, not all 8 survived. 7 is fairly common where I have my martin housing. 6 is very common, but most of my nests have 5 or 6. Adult martins are shown here also with female on the left and male on the right. Now here are some front shots of martins. The birds on the left are adult after second year birds, and the birds on the right are subadults or second year birds, those that were fledged last year. The top are males and the bottom are females. The after second year males look completely black or iridescent purple blue as the light hits them. Purple martins fledging in the summer of 2014 will not have their full adult plumage until the summer of 2016. The second year male on the right has a splotchy black feathers coming in, and the females are a little harder to identify. The after second year has a black teardrop pattern in her chrism, and the chrism are the feathers just above the tail feathers there, whereas the second year female's chrism is mostly white. Well, here I am in the field on South Bass Island, covered in mayflies, after monitoring a tree swallow colony in the tall grass. Let's talk a little about what the purple martins eat. They are aerial insectivores, and their diet is comprised completely of flying insects. They eat dragonflies, damselflies, flies, midges, mayflies, stink bugs, leafhoppers, Japanese beetles, June bugs, butterflies, moths, grasshoppers, cicadas, wasps, flying ants, and ballooning spiders. There's also a myth that purple martins eat a lot of bees, but that is not true. Bees comprise a very small part of their diet, and in the stomachs where they found bees during studies, it was always drones. Nature's timing is amazing. On South Bass Island, they seem to time the hatching of their eggs with the return of the mayflies in mid-June. My friends a little north of me in Canada call these insects Canadian soldiers. Purple martins have a high death rate during prolonged periods of cold, rainy, and windy weather. Since their diet is comprised solely of flying insects, these types of weather events can cause starvation. The average adult martin can survive 4 to 5 days without food, but will become weakened after 2 to 3 days. Nestlings can survive only a couple days without food. We had a terrible cold, windy, wet spell at the end of July last year that claimed the lives of quite a few birds on South Bass Island, especially young that had just fledged. Those in central Ohio were fine. Some martin landlords provide supplemental feeding by training their birds to eat from a feeder platform, giving them scrambled eggs, crickets, or mealworms. Training involves flipping insects into the air with a plastic spoon or a slingshot. This can save lives during adverse weather events. I haven't tried this yet, but I do put out clean crushed eggshells for them, which provides a calcium supplement, especially helpful during egg laying. I just toss the eggshells on my roof. So why this slide? This is actually a great place to begin your journey helping America's largest swallow. Establishing a successful purple martin colony takes some work and careful management. Due to the expense of a good martin rig system and the management problems you are likely to encounter, I recommend people begin by having a successful nest box or 2 in their yard, or monitoring a trail consisting of a number of nest boxes, raising eastern bluebirds, tree swallows, or other native cavity nesting birds. Many of the hurdles you will encounter with martins are the same for these birds, just on a bigger scale. Beginning with these birds is sort of like raising a puppy before you raise a child. It is better to make a mistake or 2 with a single box. Ideally, if eastern bluebirds or tree swallows lose eggs or young due to human ignorance or negligence, they will find a safer place to nest. However, you could quickly lose an entire colony of purple martins if you don't know what you're doing. Most birds exhibit site fidelity. If they are successful in their breeding attempts, they will return to the same site year after year. If they are not successful, they will abandon the site. The most important consideration in attracting purple martins is habitat. They require a relatively open area, preferably adjacent to a pond or a lake. Purple martins are aerial insectivores, so consider all the mouths they will have to feed when rearing their young. Open habitat is needed for good insect hunting. Areas near water produce a lot of flying insects. There should be no trees taller than their housing for at least 40 feet. This provides better visibility for insect hunting and keeps housing away from the habitat of the great horned owl, which will readily eat purple martins. If you don't have proper habitat, you won't have purple martins use your housing. Not only do purple martins tolerate humans well, they actually like to be near us, probably viewing people as a safe haven. So install your martin housing 30 to 120 feet from human structures if possible. Purple martin dawn song recordings and plastic martin decoys are often used to help attract martins to new housing. A few years back, I had the privilege of working in the Ohio Bluebird Society booth at the State Fair with Michael Worley. Some of you may know Michael or remember him. He was a renowned bluebirder, winning the Ohio Bluebird Society Blue Feather Award in 2007. This man knew his birds. He told me he had finally attracted purple martins after 30 years of trying. He had successfully employed the social attraction techniques of playing recorded dawn song and setting out purple martin decoys on the housing. I was surprised, as I had never used these techniques at any of the sites I monitor, but had no trouble attracting them in areas with proper habitat. I theorized that I may have stumbled upon another form of social attraction. 5 of the sites that I monitor are located within tree swallow colonies. Tree swallow colonies are established by installing individual nest boxes 25 yards apart in a grid formation or in more of a straight line around the perimeter of a pond. I believe that the activity of their smaller swallow cousins has helped attract purple martins to these areas. Some martin experts disagree with me here. Some of the most important housing design points are listed here. Although I have purple martins using both metal houses and gourds, plastic Troyer gourds are my personal preference. They are easy to clean and store for the winter. They also are individual compartments, so they help keep disease and parasites more confined. The newer Troyer vertical gourd has a short tunnel entrance that provides additional protection from avian predators. I place soft white pine needles in all the compartments at the beginning of nesting season. Regarding the recommended white exterior, although martins have been known to use housing of other colors, white seems to attract them best. White housing reflects the heat of the sun. It highlights the darkness of the entrance holes, making them easier to see, and it is believed to highlight the male martin's courtship display. Traditional wooden houses are very heavy. You can build your own. They require a very sturdy pole and winch system to handle such a heavy box. The T14 house shown here has large tunnel-type compartments which help protect the birds from avian predators, but they are extremely attractive to European starlings. The ones I monitored for a woman on South Bass Island had round holes the first year I did it, and I actually collected 85 eggs and young were removed from that house the first year of European starlings. I changed the entrances from round hole to Conley 2 entrances, and I have had no more European starling problems at all in those houses. Now, if you like lighter aluminum housing, I'll use larger compartment housing available today, 7 inches by 12 inches. The old trio houses that I have and some others have 6-inch by 6-inch compartments, but you can actually retrofit these by drilling a hole in the back or side walls to double the compartment size. And obviously that hole has to be large enough to accommodate an adult martin and should be sanded down so that bird is not cut when going through the hole. Note the crescent starling resistant entry hole here on this coats housing. These entrances are starling resistant. This design also eliminates male porch dominance. This term refers to squabbles that males may have when sharing a porch. The newer designs eliminate this. The coats house shown here comes in 8, 6, or 4 compartments. I do not recommend round holes in areas where European starlings are prevalent. This slide shows several different entrance designs available for gourds or standard housing. I have both of the plastic gourd styles shown here. Non-native European starlings can readily enter housing with standard round 2 1/8 inch diameter holes. You can spend a lot of time using nest compartment traps to capture them, or you can exclude them. I much prefer the latter. Starling-resistant entry holes have been available since around 2000. The crescent entrance shown here was developed first, followed several years later by the Conley 2, I believe, which works even better, and the Conley 2 is shown in the picture on the top left. There's another excluder entrance that's not shown here, but it is only recommended for established colonies. The Conley 2 excludes them very well in my experience. Purple martins readily take to these entrances. The biology of their shorter legs and streamlined body allows them to enter, while European starlings cannot. It's very fun to watch them try, though. There's different gourd designs out there. You can get a horizontal or a vertical gourd, and the horizontal is not shown here, but it basically has a longer tunnel-style entrance. Now, the new Troyer vertical gourd design, shown on the top left, adds a short safety tunnel to keep the birds safer from hawks or owls, but it's not too deep, so it vents better than horizontal gourds. The traps for these are also cheaper than some of your more traditional gourd styles, and you can even make your own out of sheet metal and a coat hanger. Natural gourds are rather fragile in my experience, and you need to install entry holes and access ports for monitoring and clean out. Now, the gourds shown on the bottom right were grown by Kenny Fecker, who's a purple martineer here in Ohio, and he does an excellent job with his natural gourds. He grows very large ones the size of basketballs, with thick walls about a ½ inch thick. Now, he does paint his white, and he also puts starling-resistant entry holes on them. I have no idea how you would trap in these, though. Like most of our other native birds, purple martins exhibit tight fidelity. They will return year after year to the same housing as long as they are safe. The most common reason purple martins abandon colonies is depredation by predators. A climbing raccoon or snake will devastate a colony in no time, and these predators can easily climb any wooden or metal pole. A good predator baffle is a must. The quick-release baffle shown here is nice for ease of monitoring, and you can even make your own with a 30-inch section of large-diameter stovepipes. A good pole system should allow housing to be raised 10 to 20 feet from the ground. Keep bushes and vines away from the base of your housing to discourage climbing predators. Poles with a 2-inch or 3-inch square cross-section are much preferred. Round cross-section poles can cause parents to become disoriented if housing is not raised to the proper compass point. If their compartment was originally facing west and housing is raised so it faces north, they may become confused as to who's young or who. You will not have this problem with a square pole. Perches are important. All houses seen here have them. Purple martins use these to stand guard and hunt insects. Colonies should be monitored every 5 to 7 days. This can only be accomplished with a good winch or pulley system. The cheaper telescoping poles are simply awful. I don't even know why they sell them. The new purple martin rig on the left was installed this past spring at Stratford Ecological Center in Delaware County. A baffle is still needed on the new front rig. These rigs were funded by private donations and installed by volunteers. In this photo, you can see actually interns at Stratford helped me put the gourds up on this one last spring. They're happy with what they've done. The picture on the right shows the rig at Chief East Point Nature Preserve on South Bass Island. You set poles and posts in concrete, and here's what you have at the end. So what does all this cost? Well, 12 gourds all by themselves would cost $168 plus shipping. The rig on the right is a heavy-duty aluminum steel super system gourd rack. It has a wonderful winch system. It's very smooth. It performs very well on the windy east point of South Bass Island. But this rig with gourds and all cost about $784 plus shipping. Managing purple martins is great fun. I will touch on all of these points in more detail. All of these items are important. The biggest challenge I have when providing nest sites for any native cavity nesting bird are the non-native competitors, house sparrows and European starlings. Be ready for them. It's not all in the timing, but timing is a very important part of managing a purple martin colony. Housing should never be opened until purple martins return to the area. As a general rule, I see first purple martins in central and north Ohio the last week in March to the first week in April. These are mature birds that are returning to their housing, having successfully nested with me last year. The second-year birds will come through a couple weeks after these older birds, and they are the ones you hope to attract with a new purple martin rig. Migration is a prolonged process, with successive waves of migrants arriving for 12 to 16 weeks after the first arrivals have returned. Martins can begin nesting up through the end of June, range-wide. Now, house sparrows will start nests from late winter through late summer, so trap them out in early spring if possible. The first week in June is the last week for European starlings to try to nest. Mid-March to early April, tree swallows return to Ohio, usually before the purple martins. The last week in June is the last week for tree swallows to lay eggs. Eastern bluebirds will nest from early spring through late summer, and house wrens return to central Ohio mid to late April. In Ohio, tree swallows and eastern bluebirds generally establish nest sites before purple martins return. Keeping in mind their territory requirements, which is about 22 yards for tree swallows and 100 yards for eastern bluebirds, placing a box or two within 15 to 30 feet of the martin housing works well to accommodate these birds in my experience. Eastern bluebirds and tree swallows can nest in these boxes and will chase away any others of their own species that show interest in the martin housing when it is opened up. They will also try to chase away mammalian predators and sound alarms when danger is nearby. Keep your purple martin housing closed until they return. If the native birds do show interest in martin houses after you open the housing up, block these for a short time and drive eastern bluebirds and tree swallows to appropriate housing you have set out for them. Tree swallows in a colony are great at sounding a warning call when danger is on the breeding grounds. Hawks, cats, house sparrows, me, are all deserving of alarm calls. Tree swallows are also great chasing house wrens out of the area. House wrens, although native, are notorious for piercing and tossing out eggs or young nestlings of other birds. At Chief East Point Nature Preserve on South Bass Island, I have both a tree swallow grid and a purple martin rig. What is a tree swallow grid? A tree swallow grid is established by installing nest boxes in a grid formation every 22 to 25 yards apart. Tree swallows will tolerate each other in this proximity, and a tree swallow colony is quickly established. Some martin experts disagree with providing nest sites for tree swallows near purple martins, as tree swallows may attempt to use martin housing. However, excellent martin habitat is also excellent tree swallow habitat, so they will show up. Why not manage for both native cavity nesters if possible? I find both colonies coexist very well, and here is why. The interspecies competition between tree swallows looking for nest sites seems to reduce the interspecies competition between purple martins and tree swallows. Why? With so many nest sites available for tree swallows, they are more concerned with protecting their box from other tree swallows that would want to nest there and keeping other tree swallows away from their mates. House sparrows are attracted to this clustered box setup of the grid, and they're much easier to trap out in these boxes early in spring, many before either swallow returns to nest. Tree swallows hunt smaller flying insects in the lower realms, while purple martins hunt larger flying insects in the higher realms, so there's little competition for food. The bustling tree swallow colony helps to attract purple martins to check out the rig in the hunting grounds. Tree swallows in a colony are very effective at chasing off house wrens. Tree swallows are excellent sentries. I know when house sparrows are in my yard by their squawky, raspy alarm call. They warn me, and they warn the purple martins of danger. If unwilling to trap house sparrows, I would not recommend tree swallow grid setups, as clustered boxes attract house sparrows also. A single male house sparrow can claim 3 or more boxes in a colony setup and kill tree swallows in those boxes. On South Bass Island, our home is in the middle of a tree swallow grid. You can see several of the boxes in this shot and, of course, the thriving purple martin rig. Another martin rig is in my backyard, along with more tree swallow boxes. I usually plant 11 tree swallow boxes in my yard and half a dozen in the neighbor's yard. And then I pull these when tree swallows are done nesting to make it easier to mow the grass. Here's a shot of Deer Haven Park in the preservation parks of Delaware County. You can see several of the boxes here in this tree swallow grid, this beautiful field. And in the far distance by the building, you'll see a purple martin rig. In 1903, William Dawson wrote that purple martins had been driven back to natural nesting cavities by English sparrows. The martins have suffered much at the hands of these notorious pests, and their great reduction in numbers throughout the state is doubtless due largely to this cause. After Dawson's book was published, the first European starling arrived in Ohio in 1912. Their numbers exploded here in the early 1920s. The arrival of the European starling was like the final blow in a 1-2 punch. Since they have more of an affinity for natural cavities than house sparrows, martins were driven from their natural nest sites once again. No doubt farmers clear-cutting land for crops had a lot to do with it also. But today, purple martins east of the Rocky Mountains nest almost exclusively in man-supplied housing. Both non-native competitors are aggressive and will engage and kill eggs, young, adults in a nest compartment. Because they are non-native, they are not protected under state or federal law, so it is legal to control them as you see fit. There's an excellent YouTube video of a European starling inside a purple martin nest cavity engaging an adult in battle. So if you don't believe me, you can see what they will do. Watch, if you just go ahead and search starling attack in a purple martin nest, you can watch that. Get to know what house sparrows sound and look like. There's a male here in the left inset and a female on the right, and there's juveniles in my hand. I actively control house sparrows by trapping them. It is important to capture the male house sparrow, as he will simply attract a new mate if you don't. Nest pulling is a common practice used by many purple martin landlords. I do not recommend it, as they often remain for a month or more, trying in the same compartment or moving to a nearby one to kill the martins they find there and taking over that compartment. Look at the bills on these birds. Their excellent seed-cracking beak is also an excellent head-cracking beak. If you're unwilling to control house sparrows with trapping, don't let them breed. Pull their nests and pray. If you feed birds, don't feed seeds during nesting season. It makes little sense to attract more house sparrows into your yard. This slide is a great illustration to show why purple martins have been driven from natural cavities. This shot was taken in my backyard in November. In late fall, you see them in huge flocks. If using repeat bait traps, you can catch quite a few of them in the winter, starting in mid-January. I've captured 194 so far this year. Now, European starlings compete for both nest sites in the spring and limited natural food stores during the winter months. Here are pictures of European starlings in breeding and non-breeding plumage. Look at how the bill changes color. The top left photo is a female in transition from non-breeding to breeding season. I took this picture the last week of January. You can see the pink tinge at the base of her beak. The European starling on the right are non-breeding winter plumage birds with full black bills. The bottom left shows a male in full breeding plumage, and you can see the blue tinge at the base of his yellow bill. Purple martins do not have yellow beaks. You can almost completely eliminate European starling competition by simply installing starling-resistant entry holes or Conley 2 entrances on all of your housing. If trapping in a round hold housing, it is essential to capture the male to stop the cycle of them trying to nest. Like house sparrows, the male is highly bonded to the nest site and will often attract a new mate within 24 hours. And you know you have the male during the breeding season. Again, look at that blue tinge at the base of his bill. House sparrow nests are a jumble of long, dried grass pieces and other materials. Eggs are speckled and off-white in color. European starlings have blue eggs, some pale, some darker, some speckled. Now, the picture on the bottom right shows eggs from different European starling nests in those couple of P14 houses I told you I monitored. This is 1 week's collection here. Dealing with non-native competitors is key to establishing, maintaining, and growing a purple martin colony. I am proactive when it comes to native cavity nesting compartments, only installing boxes or gourds that I have in-box traps for. Non-native house sparrows and European starlings cannot be allowed to nest in a purple martin colony. Repeat bait traps at the bottom of the slide have a compartment to hold live birds which act as decoys to attract more of their species. White bread, millet seed, or preferred nesting materials work well in the bait section of these traps during nest season to capture house sparrows. For tree swallows or eastern bluebird nest boxes, the Van Oort Universal Sparrow Trap is a wonderful tool to use in your nest boxes. And a resource page is at the end of this presentation to give you web links for all of these. You need to keep good records to know the age and progression of nestlings. Housing should be lowered and each nest checked every 5 days if possible. Close off vents during cold spring weather and open them during hot summer weather. Nest changes should be performed once or twice during the time nestlings are in the compartment. I wait until young or at least a week old to do this. Small nestlings need brooding, and the removal of their mud dams and their nests before about 1 week old could cause the young to fall out of the nest or get pushed out of the nest cup. I use soft pine needles or pine bedding, and I do not use insecticides. Wait until the martins migrate south in July or August to clean out housing. Unlike most of our other native cavity nesting birds, newly fledged martins will return to their housing and roost there for a couple of weeks before they make their big journey. I clean out housing around Labor Day with a 10% bleach solution and a good rinse. These purple martin aging sheets are a wonderful monitoring tool. Everyone should have these. You purchase them online through Purple Martin Conservation Association. These life-size laminated photos are great for education of children. You can have them help you age the young during nest changes or banding, and lamination makes them waterproof so they're easy to wipe off if the martins leave droppings on them. Whether it be counting eggs or aging young, banding birds, changing nests, making notes of adverse weather events or other problems found, data is a very important and powerful tool. If any of your rigs have been acquired through grant funding or private donations, you need to report back to the people that helped provide housing or funding for the purple martin colony. Tell them about the successes of their purple martin colony. Reports generated from good data are the only way to do this. For martin colonies, knowing the age of young is especially important. If a nestling falls out of the rig before it can fly, knowing the age of chicks in all compartments can allow you to replace it in the proper one. Premature fledging is also a concern if housing is lowered after the oldest nestlings are 20 to 22 days old. So housing should not be lowered after that time. Martins fledge after 28 days in the nest. During their last week in the nest, the young are actually they weigh too much to fly. The parents withhold some food to get them to flight weight during that last week. Typically, prematurely fledged martins won't survive. They end up on the ground or lost in the foliage. Parents typically do not feed them on the ground. Now, on the bottom right is the data screen for Cornell Nest Watch. This allows you to contribute to citizen science with your data. Researchers around the world are granted access to data for legitimate scientific research. For the nest box or a purple martin rig monitor, you have access to all your detailed field notes and data from your colonies for all the years you entered data. You can also look at species summaries by state or by the entire country. I have been entering data in NestWatch for the past 8 years. It is free, and I highly recommend it. The Project Martin Watch Nest Data Sheet and Purple Martin Conservation Association's Prognosticator are also wonderful data tools. Here's the data entry screen for Cornell Lab of Ornithology's NestWatch. Again, NestWatch is free and relatively easy to use. They have some great tutorials on their website, which should get you started. And I've also included my email on the resource page if you need further help. After you have entered your data for the season, the program can compile a breeding summary for your colony, which gives you first egg date, hatch date, number of eggs, nestlings and fledglings, fledge dates, and nest success rate. You can also access detailed information such as field notes for each individual nest site visit. The database also allows you to look at the history of nest compartments over the years. Data is generated in Microsoft Excel spreadsheets. As a monitor coordinator, I also use it to check volunteer monitors' data entry and oversee monitoring. At the click of a mouse, I can see what my monitors are doing in the field. Not only is this a great way for me to compile and access my data, it is also a wonderful citizen science tool, helping research scientists all over the world. Newly fledged purple martins will return to their housing to roost for a week or two after they fledge. So leave nests alone until they have all migrated. At that time, clean out housing or remove old nests. Store housing for the winter or block compartments until purple martins return next spring. This will keep house sparrows and European starlings from getting a foothold in housing during winter and early spring months. This map shows a timetable of the purple martins' migration and arrival at their nesting grounds in the spring. But what goes around comes around, so in July and August they leave me to head south. I miss the friendly chortle and plaintive dawn song that regaled me for the 5 months they visited. The purple martins head south again, migrating to their wintering grounds in South America. From my northernmost colony on South Bass Island, Ohio, to Brazil, the distance is 4,340 miles, folks. What a trip. Well, I've covered a lot of information in this webinar, but as Madam WingNut, I feel obligated to end this presentation with a joke. So here goes. A starling and a house sparrow walked into a bar. They hopped up onto adjacent stools and took a seat. The bartender asked them, "Oh, have you two met before?" And the starling said, "Oh, my, yes, dear. We've been introduced." So thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Paula, for that wonderful presentation. I know I learned a lot. I hope you all did as well. But if you do have any questions that come up, feel free to email Paula. She has given us her email address here at the bottom of the resources page for Madam WingNut at yahoo.com. And I also invite you to visit obcinet.org, where all of these links will be posted under our Resources for Cavity Nesting Birds tab. Again, this webinar will be recorded and posted online at obcinet.org. And I invite you to watch this as well as our other past webinars on our YouTube page, which you can link to from the OBCI website. So thank you again, and I hope to